Got it. Listeners, this is our very first podcast, first time ever in the world. We've been guests on it, but we're actually two knuckleheads trying to do one ourselves. Okay, so that's what you got to understand first. The guy over here who looks like he's getting ready to tell people to take their seats is Sam Lewis. Sam.
Hi, everybody. Hey, Mark, how do I sound?
You sound muted. How do I sound? Loud as usual.
You sound good. You sound good. I'm
Yeah,
trying out
well,
the
you sound kind of muted. You sounded a little muted. Well, listeners, what do you think? You know what? If you want to send me a text, 310-849-9181. 310-849-9181. Tell me, make me feel good. Tell me you like me better. What? Sam?
I'll never know the results of that because I don't think you'll share them with me.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I will. I mean, if it's in my favor, I will.
Right.
So anyway, guys, I'll introduce myself. I'm Mark Lips, and you are listening to Good Enough. And me and Sam will explain how that came about. My partner over here, and by the way, we go back all the way to high school. We double dated with his current wife of 85 years. And so, Sam?
I don't know where I'm going to go with that. 85 years.
Introduce yourself.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Sam Lewis. High school friends with Mark Lips over there. He went a different path in life than I did. I went a more mundane pedestrian route, and somehow on the other sides of our career we met up again, and here we are.
Hey, and it's good enough.
It's good enough. It's good enough, brother.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. How's the weather in California today?
You know what? Sunday is supposed to be 73. You guys are getting nailed, right? In the Midwest.
Yeah,
I'm in Northern California. Sam, my buddy here, is in Central Illinois.
Surrounded by corn.
Surrounded by corn. And that's not just his jokes. It's real corn.
It's real corn.
Yeah.
Real corn.
Yeah. So anyway, Sam,
yes.
Let's tell these guys kind of what we want to do here. What do you think?
Well, I think I think this is a self-exploratory adventure that we're on. And I think we have some general ideas of what we would like, I think we're entertaining ourselves. And I think we have a general idea of what others might find entertaining with what we find interesting. And, we're going to see where it takes us.
Yep. That's,
we'll talk a little bit.
But let me, for you listeners, listen to this. Sammy, you got to give the anecdote on how we came up with Good Enough.
Well, Mark and I, we cover a wide range of subjects whenever we get together, and oftentimes people can't keep up with us that are in the same crowd. But anyway, we've talked over the years a lot about business and our interest in it, and how things should work and how they do work. And I was just telling Mark an anecdote about my former boss, who used to be quite I won't say a perfectionist, but he certainly was an attention to detail guy. I mean, dotted all the I's, crossed all the T's. I remember one time we were trying to balance a budget and we were like 3 cents off, and he wasn't going to quit until he found that 3 cents. I was digging it out of my pocket. I was like, here's 3 cents. Let's call it a day.
Yeah, just put this in there. Let's call it a night. Here's 3 cents.
It's just a budget. But anyway, one thing I did learn from Jim was that this idea of good enough, and he would say to me, Sam, we've reached a point on this thing that the next 20% to get to 100% is going to cost us a lot more than the first 80%. He said, and he would always say, I remember this clearly all the time. He'd say, that's good enough. Certain things, though, you had to take to the limit, but there are other things. He's like, nope, that's good enough. And so I started understanding the concept that if you took everything to the nth degree, you'd never get anything done. And you have to know what's important and critical and what's not. And
But one time
but
you told me, you gave me a quote, and I thought it was great. You said something about perfection is the enemy of something.
of good.
Yeah, perfection. If we wait, you remember, listen, how many
That's not my quote, by the way. Somebody else.
I
Yeah,
know, but I mean, no, take
yeah.
it, call it, it's yours. Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, my friend. So, listeners, how many times have you been in board meetings or someplace where you're just angsting over all these little details, and when you realize, guys, let's just start moving forward. I mean, let's not let, and the quote that I heard that is, I mean, what I always hear, and it's the same thing as good enough, is let's not let perfect get in the way of good. Okay, we can sit here and go round and round with stuff, but if you're waiting for it to be perfect, man, ain't gonna happen. Here's a barn, let's put on a show, and let's wait, and we'll build this airplane as we're going.
Yeah, I'd say Sammy's take on it would be perfection is the enemy of get or done.
Yeah, there we go.
Because that's what
because
happens. It doesn't get done. It's like if you go halfway to make a half distance to any point, and each day you cut that distance in half and cut it in half, you never get to the point. And that's
Right.
what perfection is. It keeps cutting down, and you just never get to the destination.
And there's another thing, Sammy, you say all the time that kind of speaks to how you, as a leader, work through this good enough so that you are hitting perfection, but you're getting people activated and moving and in action and proactive by thinking in terms, guys, don't wait for it to be perfect, because you have to do it like a boss.
Like a boss. Like a boss. Thanks for that one. That was a slow pitch up there for me.
Now, I will admit, Sam, I don't know that I'd want to sit in a finance meeting and look at a budget and go, yeah, good enough. Somebody's, company's on the line there. I think that's what Enron said.
Yeah, it's good enough.
Good enough.
I mean, that example of Jim going after that 3 cents, and he's the same guy that says good enough. So obviously there's times when
right, you got to find that pin.
Exactness is really important, but
right.
preciseness.
So, Sam, tell our listeners your background.
Well, yeah, I was a young man, and I didn't go to college, and out of high school, I didn't know what I was going to be in life, so I thought that would be a waste of time for me, and I started working in a factory. I was 18 years old and just got a job, and I was always, I lived my other life vicariously through Mark and his exploits in college. So that was always, a good thing.
By the way, he was married, listeners.
And shortly after that, I got married, right, and had a couple kids, and then I decided, I can't build tires all of my life. Then it was a very physical, rough job. Now it's not so much, but so I went back to college. I think I was 25, 26, and a good friend of mine, Scott Kwok, who passed away back in December or November, he talked me into. We were on a special shift where we had our weekdays free. We worked the weekend crew, and he talked me into taking a class at a local community college. And so we drove down there together in his old van and signed up, and that's how I got back into school and got into college and started taking classes. And the funny thing is of course there was no online back then. There's no internet, right? And so if you took a class, you had to be there. It was a face-to-face thing, right?
And it was affordable.
Yeah.
Back then,
even with buildings and stuff. So I kind of meandered around on some classes I was taking, and finally I decided I just got to get a degree. And so I looked at the college catalog. What's the easiest degree for me to get? Because the classes are easy for me to attend. And that was a business degree because they gave evening classes and weekend classes, so I could attend them. So That was like it was either that or nurse care or something like that, which I did. There's no way I would never make it as a nurse. Somebody would kill me first, but I don't have that kind of patience. Those are angels from from heaven.
My
But so I
bedpan.
clean your own bedpan out.
Yeah.
Who do you think I am?
I got to do what? Wait a second.
I am
didn't
not
know
doing
that.
that. I am not touching him.
Now, well, never mind.
Anyway, so yeah, I went back to college, and and it was a good thing for me, and I learned a lot about business, and then I got into an HR job at the factory, and I learned a lot about managing people and running a factory. I had some really good mentors and bosses, really, really good ones, and one bad one. But I've always said this: you can learn as much from a bad boss as you can a good one. And unfortunately, your day's miserable, but you're learning a lot. But so
I tell that, I tell that to my kids. I have two kids that are well, I have three boys. I always tried to be an overachiever with that. He only had two. I had three. You know,
Mark has always one up
I
on
always
me.
tell them,
It doesn't matter. He's one up on me.
I always told my kids, when they call and complain about a situation, a boss or something like that, I say, listen, just remember how when you're in that position, what you didn't like, what didn't work, what was bad. So you're learning right now. And they're all in their 20s. Well, one now is 31, but they're all in their, basically just coming out or still in their 20s. And so it's all a learning curve right now. But you're right. You can learn from a bad boss as well as a good boss.
I think it's funny. I'm an old guy now. I can look back.
Older.
Wiser.
Older.
I
don't know about wiser, but
older. I'm older than old people, but
you know what? I'm so old that I hide my own Easter eggs because I won't remember. I'll still be able to. It'll still be a surprise. It's still going to be a surprise.
I still got to find them. I still have to find them.
I'm buying my own Christmas presents because by the time I open them, it's going to be a surprise.
It's a surprise. There is some advantages to that kind of stuff,
But okay, listeners, I'm going to cut to the chase here because he's really downplaying himself. This guy pulled himself up by the bootstraps, put him, his own ambition got him into college. I didn't know that Scotty Kwok was kind of a mentor in that area.
Yeah. He was it was a big deal for me. And I think back, I at his service, I spoke at his service, and I told the story. I said, I'm not altogether sure I would have ended up. Maybe I would have ended up in college. One doesn't know. It's like a pinball machine. Life is, and you're banging off things, and you're flying to the other side. Maybe I would have went to college, but certainly there's no question that Scott annoyed me enough.
Well, he got you to do it. He got you to do it sooner than later.
Yes, and he'd already been to college once. He went to Murray State, I think, and then he got drafted. And back then, there's the draft, and I know you and I had talked about. I mean, we had draft numbers, and
we all had draft numbers.
Sweating bullets a little bit, not to use a pun too heavily there, but so he literally said, "Look, I said I don't know how to sign up for." He says, "I've signed up. It's easy. It's community college. You'll get in." He says, "I'll pick you up on Monday. That's when the sign up thing is. I'll take you down." We literally went up to a counter and signed this thing, and I wrote him a check, and I was like, "Well, that's over. That was easy." So we took a similar classes. So the first couple semesters where we were able to drive down together. And then Scotty was a musician and had always had a band going ever since I've known him. Always had a band going, and so that got, he kept getting pulled away in that direction, and it was hard to keep several fires going. And so the next thing I know, I'm signing up for classes on my own and driving down there, and you remember the old blue Beetle bug I had that I
Yeah.
had the Porsche wheels on it, and that
Okay,
thing.
listeners, I know. No, wake up. Okay, so we're gonna cut to where Sam is now out of college, because even though he only went for 2 years, maybe I know it feels like four, right? But maybe six.
It took me 4 years to get to 2 years
There we go.
of the
Because you were
first
going
two.
at night. But you know
Yeah,
what? You kept at it. And that's the thing. You got to stay at it. I always tell, once again, I always tell my kids, because I tell them the things that I didn't do. And that's stay in an athletic sense, keep moving. Because if you
keep
don't,
moving.
you're staying right there. Nothing's changing. It's the same environment. It's the same people. It's the same whatever. If you keep moving, you're going to run into situations. Now, is it all going to be positive? No, but you'll learn from the negative as well. It's the old and if you fall down, pick yourself back up. So, but then you worked yourself up into HR and management, and so your big skill sets are HR and managing people and hiring and all of that. And then
Well,
you
I
buy
think
a company. Then you start a company.
that's true. I did that, but I kind of don't think. I mean, I look back, I don't think it's necessarily, I didn't feel like I was doing anything special. There's certainly a lot of successful people around, and I just kind of did the net. I never had
You
a
kept
career
moving,
plan.
but you knew
I can't.
opportunity when you
I
saw
think
it.
what you said there is the key. What I did, anyways, I just kept moving. Just
Yeah.
I did not have a career plan per se. I just took the next job. They'd say, hey,
Yeah.
and
Exactly.
often I found myself in the job before they offered me the job. You were doing the job already. And a year or so later, they go, oh, we're going to finally call you this, give you this title. Oh, and here's a little raise to go along with it.
Well, the thing
The
is,
work, the raise, the money always follows the work. It's not or at least it was in my life. I don't know how about yours, but it was always like, you did all the work, and then the money was always dragging behind you a little bit. So
right.
rather than it being out there in front and you working towards it.
Yeah. Well, my listeners, I'll tell you this: the difference between Sammy and I is I'm basically a C student with personality. That's really what it is. That's why he's got more money. I'm over here, still floundering, and it's like, I mean, he's a lot older than me, but I mean, still, I learned from him too. No, actually, we're
This is like I
almost
feel like this is a father-son relationship.
Yeah, it's really, I get a lot of, he's my mentor. And no, by the way, you should have peer mentors in your life. You had one with the one boss, and
that's definitely true.
Yeah.
I think, Tim Ferriss, the podcaster and the 4 Hour Workweek guy, he said something the other day on a podcast I was listening to of his. He said that you are the average of the 5 people you hang around with.
Yeah.
And, and that's why I always, I think if my superpower, I think, might be picking people that I hang around with. And certainly Mark, early on, running into him has been a wonderful thing for me in my life. And it
has.
And so I think
you're so lucky.
Well, I feel lucky, and I am grateful. I keep a journal and always have, and that's something I constantly, I don't want to get too flowers and kumbaya here, but
we don't want you either to do that.
But I do think it's a human nature thing to every day to just say, hey, I'm grateful for this, I'm grateful for that, I'm glad this happened. Otherwise, you can get really gloomy and doomy.
Well, what I try to do is, when I start getting down on myself a little bit about, I don't know, just life in general, I always think about, what? There's a lot of people out there that got it a lot worse off than me, whether it be health or,
Mark, you're the model.
If I only have one eye, I played hockey. I can't play hockey anymore, but I mean, I only have one eye, but there are people that don't have any eyes, so there you go.
Well, your vision was never super spectacular. Let's be honest. You know, when you lost your contacts and come walking wearing the old Coke bottle glasses.
Well, that's
Is he driving tonight?
yeah.
We let Mark drive tonight. Oh,
Well,
boy.
you take these in case you get trapped out in the woods. You can start fires. You know. So yeah. So yeah, Sammy's right. We kind of grew up. We grew up. We were together through high school, and then I left and went the normal traditional route. I didn't get married, but so I took off. I just, once again, I thought it was the thing you should do. But by the way, I want to tell you, listeners, those of you who are parents, college is great. It's a good transition. It's a good experience for your kids to learn how to be with others and stuff like and manage relationships and compromise and all of that. But they have today, which I don't think they didn't have when we were kids. They have so many specialty schools now. If your kid absolutely knows what they want to do, they've got a school for it. I have a kid. Two of my kids are in the film business, and one kid said, I wish I'd started right out of high school rather than go to college. But I think also he needed college, but he decided, but there's a lot of specialty schools that
we would agree, right? I mean, college is not for everybody. I mean, it certainly was not for me out of high school.
My oldest son is doing fantastic, and he was not a college guy.
Yeah. But I will say
he found his way early.
Yeah. College was a wonderful thing for me when I finally got there, but it wasn't not going to work for me out of high school. It wasn't. Right. But I always admired you, Mark, in the sense that, and I still do, that you had a certain bravery about life that I didn't necessarily possess, that you kind of jumped off a few bridges and said, I'm just going to go for it. I remember you used to call me and go, yeah, you ought to move to Chicago. You ought to move to New York. You ought to move to Harris. What we'll do? I was like, good God, I don't have a job. What would I'd starve to death?
Neither did I.
Apparently, starving to death is not that big a deal.
Right. Well, that's
right?
why
you like to starve to death at least once or twice.
Expenses. Of course, we'd have to split it 3 ways, and then once you brought the kids, we're splitting it 4 and 5 ways. So
Well, there was, me and you living in the same abode would not be good for the neighborhood. Let's face it.
Oh, are you kidding?
I think separately, but living together, it would be.
No. See, I disagree.
So?
I think. Listen, in every, and you guys probably know this too. In every group, in any neighborhood, anywhere, there's always the person who is the person who organizes the potluck at the office or organizes the block parties and all of that. I guarantee you, Sam and I would have been.
That's true.
We would have organized all that stuff. We would have had killer parties, and the neighborhood when we left, the neighborhood would have been sorry to see us go. Because
all right, from that perspective, I might give you that, because there's no doubt about that. We would have been. It would have been the locus of everything happening. That's for sure.
So anyway, I like Sam said, C student with personality. So I went into theater, and I was with American Conservatory Institute in San Francisco for a little while. Then I went down to LA, drove down to LA, didn't know anybody. And then here in LA, bought a one-way plane ticket to New York, lived in New York at first down in the oh golly, I tell you, this is it, senior moment. Lived down in the southern part of New York.
I'm just going to say this: when you hide Easter eggs, make sure they're not real ones, because if you don't find them,
the pigs will get them.
Nothing worse than a bad Easter egg.
Yeah. By the way, I swapped this. I heard about a farmer who swapped the eggs in his coop with colored decorated eggs, and the rooster went in there later, got so pissed off he went out and beat up the peacock. You get that? See, a rooster impregnates You saw those colors.
Colored ass.
Anyway, okay, got it. I got a lot of those.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
Anyway, after you know, I was never one. I was always impatient, as you remember, and
Oh yeah.
ADHD.
Thank God you got. Thank God you got that cured.
That's why I was so good. That's why I was so good in television. The television model is we don't want it good, we want it Thursday. It's good enough.
Right. Good enough.
So
We both have had our good enough moments.
yeah. So anyway, then so went to New York, did my time there, came back to LA, ended up coming back from a tequila fueled trip in Mexico, and stopped off at the guy I was with. His dad had a house in San Diego, and I stopped off there. And they owned a group of TV stations. Stopped off there, and ended up sitting up late at night talking to this guy. He happened to be there about news, and he said, "You know what? I like what you say. I want you to work for me," and that's what started me. So the lesson there is never think you're not qualified, because I got to tell you, I've never been qualified for any job I've ever had in television.
Oh.
But once again, and enthusiasm, attitude, personality, all of that is what plays into an interview. People will take someone who's coachable and has the personality and the attitude, doesn't look like they're starving, doesn't act like they're starving, and has something to offer in that respect. And they'll take you over the guy who's, you know, like a wallpaper paste over there in the corner or something, you know.
I couldn't agree
But
more.
anyway, that's what got me going. I ended up working in news, and then headed up a news organization and this was in the Midwest. Headed up a news organization then at another station that he bought, and then I ended up running these low power stations, TV stations in Chicago, which was pretty funny. You know, because all of us were young. All of us were probably late 20s, you know, and I remember if we were hungry, we would get on the air, because we would rent out time to music producers, like music video stations. This was back when MTV and all that was happening, right? And we'd order a pizza, and we'd tell people, we'd go on the air and say, whoever gets there with a pizza first gets to go on air and talk about their pizza place. And these people would start showing up with pizzas, and we're just over there just scarfing pizza, and the guy's going, okay, what else? Read your phone number again. There we go. You know, we're just shoveling pizza. Anyway, and we would go into clubs and shoot, bands and things like that. But then after that, I decided I wanted to get into programming and sales, and because that's who I saw was making all the money. So for a little bit of time, I worked in sales, TV sales. But then I took a job programming with Mary Tyler Moore, pitching TV shows. And here's the lesson here, listeners. Listen to this. I got so many of these anecdotes, man. I don't know if we should wait a couple episodes, but when I went to interview, it was at the top of the Four Seasons in Chicago with MTM, Kevin Tannehill, who I'm still in touch with. He was the president of MTM at the time. And I went in there and I said, yeah, I've got sales experience. I'm single. Flexible. I know the TV side because I worked at the TV side, all of that stuff. And then at the end, and by the way, there are guys lined up in the hallway for their interview. And I finally, this is going for the close. I finally said, listen, Mr. Tannehill, unless you absolutely don't like me, what's not to hire? And he looked at me and he said, you're right. You're hired. And I go, what? Oh, and that just took me. And I said, holy crap, are you fucking sure? And he goes, yep. I said, do we need to, he goes, I said, can I get that in writing? I still have it to this day.
Are you just trying to get me out of here?
He took his business card and he wrote the deal terms on the business card. And I still have it. And
wow.
And that was my first. And then I worked then I sold TV shows, pitched TV shows for Reicher Entertainment the last 18 years.
Where did you live when you worked for MTM?
MTM?
Yeah.
1989 to 92, I guess.
So where did you live?
Oh, Chicago and then Dallas.
Dallas, yeah.
I headed up I was the junior in Chicago and then headed up the office in Dallas. And then I
Right.
went to Aisher and then from there to Fox Broadcasting Network for 18 years. And then I'm out. And now
18 years.
I
Wow.
hate watching TV. But I like watching you, Sam.
Well,
so, listen, guess.
you know, you said something interesting a minute ago. I mean, you did say one thing interesting a minute ago, at least.
What? You can only be cruel to the ones you love, Sam.
I loved what you said about, you know, the thing about just showing up, willing to learn. You know, if there's any young people listening, and I hope maybe there are, that particularly in this workforce right now, that is like gold. If you can show up and just show people that you're willing to work, willing to learn, and be here every day, that is gold, absolute gold right now.
I mean, they have to get a sense. There has to be an aura that says you want this job. When I got another anecdote. Do I have time for another anecdote?
Yeah, 7. We got 8 minutes.
Oh, geez. Anyway, when I got the job at Fox, I heard about it, and I flew out on my own dime to LA to meet with them. Got the interview, met with them, and they said, I literally in the interview said I was absolutely not the person they were looking for. Told me that to my face, but I knew I was the person. Okay. So I went back, started backdooring it with people calling in and say, hey, you should hire Mark Lipps and all that stuff. This time they flew me out and on their dime and met with me again. Still got the sense that I hadn't closed it right. So I'm on the road pitching these TV shows for Reicher at the time. And I sent, and not everybody can do this because it has to come from inside. It can't be gimmicky manufactured or something.
No, right.
I took one of my corporate headshots and I drew a bubble on it and I said, I want this job. And I FedExed it to the person who was doing the hiring, the lady in the department. And she called me up the next day and says, you got it.
I'm telling you, that's
all I did. That closed it because she knew I wanted that position.
That's
so
when
I knew I could do it. And then later on, you know what she said later on? Someone told me that she said later on she wishes she had 10 Mark Lippses, you know? So in your heart, if you know that's your job, go out and get it.
Well, that's listeners, that's a perfect example. I'm in the recruiting business now. I've hired gazillions of people, helped hire gazillions of people, and I'm telling you, you don't know how many times it just comes down. You're looking at 2 candidates. It's like sometimes it feels like a flip of a coin, and you know it's the one person that tells you unequivocally, "I want that job." Some way, shape, or form they tell you, and that makes a difference. And right. I don't know. It just is not. I don't see it as much today in recruiting as I used to. It's maybe there's too many jobs and people can pick and choose, and they don't necessarily have to. Back we're part of the baby boomer generation. So if there was a job opening, there was 100 people applying for it. And it's like being on the gangplank going into Noah's Ark. And you're one of 3 monkeys, and brother, it's starting to sprinkle. There's only room for 2. You got to fight your way onto the Noah's Ark, right?
Yeah, you gotta do is you gotta go down Noah's Ark and say, listen, I'm not just a monkey. I can do other stuff. I can do other stuff.
I can steer this thing. I think.
I'll clean. All that poop. I will help you clean that.
Clean poop up. I'll muck this thing out.
Yeah. So you got to be willing to. You can't be a prima donna at your young age, youngster, and going for a job.
Fight like the 3rd monkey on the gangplank, and brother, it's starting to sprinkle.
But so, listeners, before we close out, we do want to mention that our plan is for this podcast is that we're going to have a guest each week, and the guest might be someone from business, but it also might be a stand-up comic. It might be a marketing person. It might be, I don't know,
An author,
politician.
author,
Might-
artist.
It might be a monkey.
But the third monkey that didn't make it.
Didn't make it. Come on.
Oh,
over
he
here.
wouldn't be here, would he?
We got room for it. No, he wouldn't. He wouldn't. There is a thought out there, and I may be crossing a line here, but there is a thought out there
Oh, I'm certain of that.
we do not have some animals because once they got on Noah's Ark and they started floating away, they found out both animals were male or both animals were female. That kind of stops the.
That's a dead end for that species. Oh boy. Can you imagine them on the boat at the going, oh boy,
Wait a second.
Did we
You're male too?
no,
Well-
did we screw that up?
It was the unicorns. It was the unicorns. 2 male unicorns on the ark.
Where's that peacock?
So our shows, how long are our shows going to be, Sam?
We got 3 minutes left. I
Yeah, but
think it's
how long
I
are
think
these
it's-
shows going to be?
45 minutes.
Probably 45
Right.
minutes. And we're going to tell you we're cheap, listeners, because it's 45 minutes because that's the free Zoom.
That's the free Zoom.
In
That-
success,
45
we
minutes
might go to
including-
an hour. In
yeah,
success,
that includes a jingle and everything and commercial
Yeah.
breaks.
if we can afford $12 a month, we might go to the other Zoom.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if the world
anyway-
wants that.
And the next time you hear from us, we'll have an opening, a jingle. Well, we have a jingle. I wish Sam would learn how to play that jingle through here because
I've got meetings. I got meetings this week scheduled and next week to make me more technically savvy on this. So our
on
good
the-
friend
being able
Tara,
so we can play
let's
the
give Tara Desmond a shout out. Our good friend Tara's going to help me
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
And I got a meeting with another fellow who has his own podcast. He's going to help me out, I hope.
Yeah.
So
Well,
us
I'm-
out. So
I got someone who's going to show me how to use this not expensive little soundboard here so we can add special effects.
that would be
And I can fade you out when I don't want to listen anymore.
Just turning down.
So, but and who knows? Maybe we'll even introduce our listeners to our families. I mean, we're definitely both our wives are engaged in with other people. No, they are
Otherwise
involved,
preoccupied
active.
and employed.
and so
Well,
We'll
Terry's
definitely have him on and
49%
talk to
owner
him.
of this business.
yeah.
Oh, by the way, today's show's been brought to you by
The Ripe Choice Farm and Catering, theripechoice.net. Ripe like a piece of fruit, theripechoice.net. Go to it. And if you live within, I don't know, 30 minutes away, we'll cater something for you.
also by Bloomington Normal Pride Staff, the best damn staffing agency in the area. We'll find you a job fast.
Yeah. So,
How'd that sound,
anyway,
Mark? I got to work on that a little bit.
Sam,
We're down to
Sam,
1 minute.
it
wanna
is
say
a
goodbye?
pleasure. It is
It
a
was
pleasure.
my pleasure.
You know, I would say that I
Wrap
would
it up.
I would want somebody else to I wouldn't want anybody else to host this with me because you know why?
Why?
You're good
Good
enough.
enough. Thank you,
See
brother.
you guys.